Avery Lane never believed in fairy tales until anonymous notes began appearing in her desk, each revealing someone knew her better than anyone ever had, but nothing prepared her for who walked into the lobby next. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The morning sun spilled through the windows of Grayson Enterprises' main lobby as Avery Lane arranged a stack of visitor badges at the reception desk. Another Monday, another week of answering phones, directing visitors, and keeping her head down. "Morning, Avery," called Melissa from security, waving as she passed through the metal detectors. Avery smiled and waved back. "Good morning. Coffee's fresh in the break room." This was her routine for the past year since landing the receptionist job at the prestigious downtown real estate firm. The pay was decent, the benefits good, and most importantly, it helped cover rent and her student loans. At 26, Avery had given up on fairy tales and focused on practicality instead. "Any messages?" asked Daniel, the office manager, stopping by her desk. "3 calls from city planning about the Riverside project," Avery replied, handing him a stack of pink message slips. "And Mrs. Hoffman wants to reschedule her appointment for tomorrow instead of Thursday." Daniel nodded. "Thanks, you're always on top of things." Avery smiled politely as he walked away. Being reliable was her specialty. No drama, no complications, just doing her job well. At lunch, she sat alone in the corner of the cafeteria, reading a dog-eared paperback while eating her sandwich. Occasionally, she glanced up to watch the rain hitting the windows, her eyes turning distant as if remembering something. "Mind if I join you?" asked Grace, the marketing coordinator and Avery's only real friend at the company. "Please do," Avery said, marking her page and putting the book aside. Grace set down her salad and leaned forward. "So, how was your weekend?" "Please tell me you did something besides laundry and groceries," Avery laughed. "I caught up on my shows and took a long walk in the park. It was nice." "Avery Lane," Grace sighed dramatically. "You are 26, gorgeous, and living in the city like you're in witness protection. When are you going to start living?" "I am living," Avery replied with a practiced smile. "Just quietly." "You know what you need? A date. A real one, not those awful app meetups where guys talk about cryptocurrency for 2 hours." Avery shook her head. "No thanks. I'm good." The truth was, Avery had learned the hard way not to get her hopes up. Her last relationship had ended when her boyfriend admitted he was embarrassed to introduce her to his wealthy family. "You're great, Avery," he'd said, "but not exactly what they expect from me." The memory still stung. After lunch, Avery returned to her desk and opened the drawer to grab a pen. That's when she saw it, a cream-colored envelope that hadn't been there before. Her name was written on the front in elegant handwriting. Frowning, she opened it and pulled out a card. "Dear Avery, I've noticed how you smile at everyone who enters the building, making them feel welcome even when you're having a tough day yourself. Your kindness doesn't go unnoticed. I just wanted you to know that." An admirer, Avery, stared at the note, then quickly looked around the lobby. Was this some kind of joke? She slipped the card into her purse and tried to focus on her work, but her mind kept returning to the mysterious message. That evening, she showed the note to Grace over coffee at their favorite cafe. "Oh my God," Grace squealed, attracting stares from nearby tables. "A secret admirer. This is just like in the movies." "Or it's Steve from accounting being weird again," Avery replied, stirring her latte. "Don't be so negative," Grace said. "Why? Is it so hard to believe someone noticed how amazing you are?" Avery sighed. "Because people like me don't get fairy tales, Grace. We get reality, and reality is rarely that romantic." "Well, I think it's sweet," Grace insisted. "Aren't you even a little curious?" Avery was curious, but she was also suspicious. Experience had taught her that unexpected attention usually came with a catch. The next day, Avery found another note in her drawer. "Dear Avery, I heard your laugh today when you were on the phone. It's a sound that brightens even the gloomiest day. You should laugh more often." An admirer, Avery felt a chill. Whoever this was had been watching her closely. She scanned the lobby, wondering if someone was observing her reaction right now. By Friday, there had been a new note every day, each one mentioning something personal: how she watched the rain, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when concentrating, how she always remembered everyone's coffee order during morning meetings. "It has to be someone who works here," Grace said during their lunch break. "The notes are too specific." "That's what worries me," Avery replied. "It feels intrusive." "Or thoughtful," Grace countered. "Come on, Avery, what if this is real? What if someone genuinely sees how special you are?" Avery shook her head. "People don't fall for receptionists from a distance, Grace. This is probably some board executive's idea of fun." That afternoon, Avery found the fifth note. This one was different. "Dear Avery, I've written these notes because I've admired you from afar for months. You treat everyone with warmth you never seem to offer yourself. I wish you could see what I see when I look at you. I understand if these messages make you uncomfortable. Just say the word and they'll stop. An admirer. Something about the sincerity." In those words made Avery's heart flutter despite her better judgment. Impulsively, she grabbed a pen and a sticky note, scribbled a quick message, and left it in the drawer. "Okay, Romeo. If you're real, show up. Otherwise, please stop." She immediately regretted it, but it was too late to take back. The rest of the day passed normally, and by closing time, Avery had convinced herself the whole thing would now end. Her challenge would either scare off the prankster or prove there was no one really there. The weekend came and went. On Monday morning, Avery arrived early, half expecting to find another note. The drawer was empty. She felt a strange mix of relief and disappointment. The week progressed without any more notes. By Thursday, Avery had almost forgotten about her secret admirer. "Almost. I told you it was just someone messing around," she told Grace over lunch. Grace looked disappointed. "Maybe you scared them off with your note, or exposed that there was never anyone serious to begin with," Avery replied, trying to ignore the hollow feeling in her chest. Friday afternoon was always busy at reception. Executives rushed to finish work before the weekend. Visitors came for last-minute meetings, and the phones never stopped ringing. Avery was so focused on multitasking that she barely noticed when the lobby suddenly went quiet. The elevator doors opened, and everyone froze. Avery looked up from her computer screen to see what was happening. A tall man in an impeccable charcoal suit stepped out. His presence commanded attention, his confident stride marking him as someone accustomed to power. Avery recognized him immediately from the company website and rare appearances in the business news. Nikolai Grayson, 30, CEO of Grayson Enterprises and owner of the entire building. Whispers rippled through the lobby as he walked across the marble floor. Rumors about him were legendary among the staff. Some said he was brilliantly innovative, others claimed he was ruthlessly demanding. Everyone agreed he was intimidating, and he was walking straight toward Avery's desk. Her heart hammered as he approached. Had she done something wrong? Was there a security breach? In the year she'd worked there, she'd never seen him in person, let alone had him approach her directly. He stopped directly in front of her, his expression unreadable. Up close, she noticed his eyes were a startling blue-gray, like the ocean. "During a storm, Miss Lane," he said, his voice deep and surprisingly gentle. Avery swallowed hard. "Yes, Mr. Grayson?" He reached inside his suit jacket and pulled out a cream-colored envelope, identical to the others she'd received. The lobby went completely silent. Everyone was watching. "I wasn't sure I had the right to say anything," he said quietly. His voice meant only for her despite the audience. "But since you asked me to show up, here I am." Avery felt the blood drain from her face as he placed the envelope on her desk. With trembling fingers, she opened it and read the single line inside. "I fell for you from a distance because I didn't want to overwhelm you, but I'll stand here now, if you'll let me." She looked up at him, unable to form words. This couldn't be real. Nikolai Grayson, the billionaire CEO, couldn't possibly be her secret admirer. Men like him didn't notice women like her. The silence stretched between them as dozens of eyes watched and waited. Nikolai didn't seem to care about their audience. His attention was focused entirely on Avery, patient but vulnerable in a way that seemed impossible for someone of his stature. Finally, he spoke again. "I'll be upstairs, waiting, only if you want to talk." He turned and walked back toward the elevator, leaving Avery frozen in shock. As the elevator doors closed behind him, The lobby erupted in whispers and stares. Grace appeared at Avery's side, wide-eyed and breathless. "That was Nikolai Grayson," she hissed. "The Nikolai Grayson, and he's your secret admirer?" Avery couldn't process it. The most powerful man in the building had been leaving her notes for days, noticing things about her that no one else ever had. It made no sense. Men with his wealth and power didn't pursue ordinary receptionists. "It has to be a mistake," she whispered. "The man called you by name and handed you a letter himself," Grace countered. "What are you going to do?" Avery looked at the elevator, then at the letter in her hands. Her practical side screamed that this was too good to be true, that there had to be a catch, that men like Nikolai Grayson didn't fall for women like her, but a smaller, braver part of her wondered, what if? "I don't know," she finally said, her voice barely audible as she stared at the elevator where he had disappeared. "I honestly don't know." The office buzzed with whispers as Avery sat motionless at her desk. For several minutes after Nikolai Grayson's departure, she couldn't move, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. "Avery!" Grace's voice finally broke through her daze. "Are you okay?" "I don't know," Avery answered honestly, still staring at the letter in her hands. Daniel, the office manager, approached her desk with wide eyes. "Was that Mr. Grayson? Did he speak to you?" Before Avery could answer, her phone rang. She answered automatically, her voice surprisingly steady. "Grayson Enterprises, how may I direct your call?" As she transferred the call, she noticed everyone in the lobby stealing glances at her. Word was spreading fast. By Monday, the entire building would know that the reclusive CEO had personally delivered a letter to the receptionist. "You have to go upstairs," Grace whispered when Avery hung up. "He's waiting for you." "I can't just leave my desk," Avery replied, grateful for the excuse. "I'll cover for you," Grace insisted. "Come on, Avery. How often does something like this happen?" "Never," Avery admitted. "That's what scares me." Grace grabbed Avery's shoulders gently. "Listen to me. For once in your life, take a chance. If you don't go upstairs, you'll always wonder what might have happened." Avery looked at the clock. It was 4:30, only 30 minutes until the end of her shift. "I'll go at 5, she decided. "That gives me time to think about what to say." Those 30 minutes were the longest of Avery's life. She transferred calls mechanically, her mind racing, with questions. Why her? What did Nikolai Grayson, a man who could have anyone, see in a simple receptionist? Was this some kind of game? At exactly 5 o'clock, Grace practically pushed her toward the elevator. "Go and text me everything." Heart pounding, Avery stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the top floor. As the doors closed, she caught a glimpse of herself in the mirrored wall. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes wide with uncertainty. She smoothed her simple navy dress and took a deep breath. The executive floor was quieter than the busy lobby. Thick carpet muffled her footsteps as she approached the glass doors marked Nikolai Grayson, CEO. His assistant's desk was empty. It was Friday evening, after all. Avery hesitated, then knocked softly on the door. "Come in," called that same deep voice. She pushed open the door to find Nikolai standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, his back to her as he gazed at the city below. The office was massive but surprisingly warm, with wood paneling and comfortable furniture that contrasted with the sleek, modern design of the rest of the building. He turned as she entered, and for a moment they simply looked at each other. Without the audience of the lobby, Avery noticed details she'd missed before. The slight crease between his brows, the way his dark hair curled slightly at his temples, the cautious hope in his eyes. "You came," he said simply. "I almost didn't," Avery admitted. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "I wouldn't have blamed you." "Why me?" The question burst from her before she could stop it. Nikolai gestured to a chair. "Would you like to sit?" Avery nodded, perching on the edge of a leather armchair while he took the seat across from her. "I've been asking myself the same question," he said. "Why you? I don't have a simple answer. I first noticed you 6 months ago during a fire drill. Everyone was annoyed at having their work interrupted, but you were making sure an elderly custodian made it safely down the stairs." Avery remembered that day. "Mr. Rivera. He has bad knees." "You knew his name," Nikolai said softly, "and his Medical condition. That's when I first started paying attention. Every day I'd find a reason to come down to the lobby just to see how you treated people. You've been watching me for 6 months? Avery wasn't sure if she should be flattered or concerned. Observing, he corrected, from a respectful distance. I saw how you remember everyone's names, how you help the security guards when they're overwhelmed, how you stay late without complaint when needed. That's just being a decent employee, Avery said, uncomfortable with his praise. It's more than that. You care about people, genuinely care, in a world where that's increasingly rare. He leaned forward slightly. Especially in my world. Something in his tone made Avery look more closely at him. Despite his wealth and power, there was a loneliness in his eyes that she recognized. Your world? A world where people see my name, my company, my bank account, never me. He smiled ruefully. The curse of being a Grayson, everyone wants something. And what do you want from me? Avery asked cautiously. Just a chance, he said simply. A chance to know you better, without the weight of my position standing between us. That's why I wrote the notes instead of approaching you directly. I didn't want to overwhelm you. Avery thought about the notes, each one noticing small details about her that most people overlooked. You said things in those notes that made me feel... She trailed off, unsure how to express it. Seen, he suggested. She nodded. Which is ironic, since I had no idea who was seeing me. I apologize if I made you uncomfortable, he said. I debated for weeks about whether to write to you at all, but I couldn't stop thinking about you, and I ran out of excuses to pass through the lobby. Despite her reservations, Avery felt a smile tugging at her lips. So the great Nikolai Grayson was too nervous to just ask me out. His laugh was unexpected and genuine. Terrified, actually. I haven't asked anyone on a proper date in years. Most of my relationships have been arranged. Society events, business dinners, setups by well-meaning board members with their daughters or nieces. He sighed. Dating within carefully controlled parameters. Avery struggled to relate. And that's bad. It's empty, he said. I've had relationships that looked perfect on paper, that pleased my family and made good business sense, but never with someone who didn't have an agenda. His eyes met hers. Until now, perhaps. Avery felt a flutter of panic. I'm not sure what I'm doing here, she admitted. This morning I was just a receptionist. Now I'm sitting in the CEO's office while the entire building gossips about us. Nikolai frowned. I didn't think about how that would affect you. That was selfish of me. Why did you come to the lobby like that? You could have called me up here privately. Because you challenged me to show up, he said. And I wanted you to know I was serious. No hiding, no secrets. He ran a hand through his hair, a surprisingly human gesture for someone so polished. I realize now I've created a complicated situation for you. Avery nodded, thinking of the whispers and stares that would follow her on Monday. People will talk. Let me fix this, he said suddenly. I can have you transferred to any department you'd prefer with a promotion, or if you'd rather work at one of our other locations. Wait, Avery interrupted, a cold feeling settling in her stomach. Are you trying to move me somewhere else? Only if that's what you want, he said quickly. I just thought that you'd make me disappear from the lobby. Avery stood up, hurt and anger replacing her earlier nervousness. So people won't gossip about why the big boss is interested in the lowly receptionist? Nikolai looked genuinely confused. That's not... Let me guess, Avery continued, old wounds reopening. I'm great, but not exactly what people expect for someone like you. Recognition dawned in his eyes. Someone hurt you like that before. Avery looked away, embarrassed by her outburst. It doesn't matter. It matters to me, he said gently. And for the record, I wasn't suggesting hiding you away. I was trying to give you options, in case my attention made your current position uncomfortable. Avery felt foolish. Her insecurities had made her jump to the worst conclusion. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have assumed. Don't apologize, he interrupted. I should have been clearer. He stood and moved closer, though still keeping a respectful distance. Avery, I don't care what anyone thinks about who I spend time with. I've spent my entire life being judged and having my choices scrutinized. It comes with the territory. And I've spent my life being overlooked or dismissed, she admitted. So this, she gestured between them, doesn't make sense to me. Maybe that's exactly why it makes sense, he suggested. We're seeing each other when others don't. His words echoed what he'd written in his notes. Avery felt her defenses wavering. I'd like to start over, Nikolai said. Not as CEO and receptionist, just as Nikolai and Avery. Would you have dinner with me tomorrow night? Avery hesitated. Everything was moving so fast, and she still had doubts. I don't know. You don't have to answer now, he said. Take the weekend to think about it. He wrote something on a business card and handed it to her. My personal number. Call or text me when you decide, either way. Avery took the card, noting that he'd crossed out the printed information and written his number by hand. It was such a small thing, but it touched her that he'd made it personal. I will, she promised. As she turned to leave, he called her name. When she looked back, he said, Whatever you decide, thank you for coming upstairs. It took courage. The elevator ride down was a blur. By the time Avery reached the lobby, most of the staff had left for the weekend. But Grace was waiting by her desk. Well, Grace demanded, practically bouncing with excitement. He asked me to dinner tomorrow night, Avery said, still not quite believing it herself. Grace squealed. I knew it. What did you say? That I needed to think about it. Grace's face fell. You're kidding. Nikolai Grayson asks you out, and you need to think about it? Yes, Avery said firmly, as they gathered their things to leave. This isn't a fairy tale, Grace. It's real life with real consequences. What happens if we go out a few times and it doesn't work? I still have to come to work every day. Or, Grace countered as they walked to the subway, what if it does work? What if he's exactly what he seems? A successful man who saw something special in you and was brave enough to reach out. Men like Nikolai Grayson don't end up with women like me, Avery sighed. Stop saying that, Grace snapped with uncharacteristic sharpness. Who decides what kind of woman deserves a man like him? Why not you? Avery had no answer. They parted. Ways at the subway entrance, Grace heading uptown and Avery downtown to her small apartment in a less fashionable neighborhood. That night, Avery couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the conversation with Nikolai, analyzing every word and expression. Was he sincere? What did he really want from her? And why did the thought of seeing him again make her heart race? Saturday morning dawned bright and clear. Avery cleaned her apartment, did laundry, and tried to focus on normal weekend tasks instead of the business card burning a hole in her wallet. By afternoon, she couldn't stand it anymore. She called Grace. I don't know what to do, she confessed, when Grace answered. You want my honest opinion? Grace asked, always. I think you're scared, Grace said bluntly. Not of him, but of hoping again, of letting yourself believe that something wonderful might actually happen to you. Avery was silent, her friend's words hitting too close to home. Look, Grace continued more gently, I'm not saying marry the guy. I'm saying have dinner with him, talk to him, find out if there's something real there. And if there isn't, then you'll know, and you can move on. But if there is... Grace paused. Avery, don't let fear rob you of what could be an amazing chance. After they hung up, Avery pulled out the business card and stared at the handwritten number. Grace was right, she was afraid. Afraid of being hurt, afraid of being disappointed, afraid of hoping. But she was also tired of letting fear make her decisions. Before she could change her mind, she typed a message. This is Avery. Yes to dinner. Tonight, if the offer still stands. Her finger hovered over the send button for a long moment before she finally pressed it. Almost immediately, her phone buzzed with a reply. The offer absolutely stands. I'll pick you up at 7 if that works for you. Avery hesitated, then typed her address. As she hit send, she felt as if she was crossing some invisible line, stepping from safety into unknown territory. What she didn't know was that 20 floors above the city in his penthouse apartment, Nikolai Grayson was looking at her message with the same mixture of hope and fear, wondering if he too was about to discover whether fairy tales could sometimes, against all odds, come true in real life. For the fifth time in the past hour, Avery checked her reflection in the mirror. She'd changed outfits 3 times already, wanting to look nice but not like she was trying too hard. She finally settled on a simple burgundy dress that Grace had once insisted brought out the gold flecks in her brown eyes. At precisely 7 p.m., her doorbell rang. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door to find Nikolai standing there, looking more relaxed in dark jeans and a charcoal sweater instead of his usual business suit. "Hi," he said, a hint of nervousness in his smile. "These are for you." He handed her a small bouquet of wildflowers, not the elaborate roses she might have expected. "Thank you," Avery said, surprised by the thoughtful choice. "They're beautiful. Come in while I put them in water." As Nikolai stepped into her modest apartment, Avery felt a flash of self-consciousness. Her place was neat, but simple, a far cry from what he must be used to. "I like your home," he said, looking around with genuine interest. "It feels warm." Avery arranged the flowers in a vase. "It's not much, but it's mine." "That's what matters," he said. "Ready to go?" As they left the building, Avery was relieved to see a simple black sedan waiting instead of the flashy luxury car she'd expected. Nikolai opened the door for her, and she slid into the passenger seat. "I hope you don't mind that I'm driving," he said, getting in beside her. "I gave my driver the night off." "You drive yourself?" Avery asked before she could stop herself. He laughed. "Contrary to popular rumor, I can operate a vehicle. I just don't usually have time during the week." As they pulled into traffic, Avery asked, "Where are we going?" "I thought we'd go to Angelo's," he said. "It's a small Italian place I discovered when I first moved to the city. Before I could afford the fancy restaurants." Avery looked at him in surprise. "There was a time when you couldn't afford fancy restaurants?" "Of course," he said. "I wasn't born with the company. My father started it, but I had to earn my place." He glanced at her. "Did you think I've always been rich?" "I guess I never thought about it," Avery admitted. "The rumors around the office make you sound like you were born wearing custom suits." Nikolai chuckled. "I got my first job at 15 washing dishes at a diner. My father insisted that I work my way up, starting from the bottom. He said no one respects a leader who hasn't done the hard jobs." "That's surprising," Avery said. "Most wealthy kids I've known never had to work a day in their lives." "My father grew up poor," Nikolai explained. "He started the company with a single property he renovated himself. He never wanted me or my sister to forget our roots." The restaurant was tucked away on a side street with no fancy sign or valet parking. Inside it was cozy and warm, with checkered tablecloths and candles in wine bottles. The owner, an elderly man with a thick Italian accent, greeted Nikolai like an old friend. "Nico, it's been too long." "Hello, Angelo, this is Avery." Angelo beamed at her. "Beautiful lady, come, I have the best table for you." As they settled in, Avery realized they were the only customers in the back corner, secluded from the other diners. "Do you come here often?" she asked. "When I can," Nikolai replied. "It's one of the few places where I can just be myself." Angelo brought them wine without being asked. "The usual, Nico." "Please," Nikolai said. "If that's okay with you," he added. Looking at Avery, she nodded, touched that he'd checked with her. As Angelo walked away, she said, "He calls you Nico." "Most people who've known me since before I took over the company do," he explained. "Nikolai became my professional name. Sometimes I miss just being Nico." "Which do you prefer?" Avery asked. He looked thoughtful. "From you? I'd like to be Nico, the he." Evening flowed more easily than Avery had expected. The food was delicious, unpretentious Italian home cooking. Nikolai, or Nico as she was beginning to think of him, asked about her life, listening intently as she told him about growing up in a small town, her move to the city for college, and her struggles to find her place. "What made you apply to Grayson Enterprises?" he asked. Avery sipped her wine. "Honestly, the benefits package. I had student loans to pay off and your company offers good health insurance." She hesitated. "Is that disappointing?" "Not at all," he said. "It's honest. Most people would make up some story about always dreaming of working for my company." "Well, I do enjoy the job more than I expected," Avery admitted. "I like meeting different people every day." "What did you study in college?" he asked. "English." Literature, she replied. Not very practical, I know. What would you do if practicality wasn't a concern? Avery hesitated, unused to sharing her dreams. I'd like to teach, actually. Help kids discover books that might change their lives, the way some books changed mine. Why haven't you pursued that? Teaching certificates cost money, she said, simply. And time I don't have while working full-time, maybe someday. Nico nodded thoughtfully but didn't press further. Instead, he told her about his own college days, including some spectacular failures in his early attempts at property development. I once tried to renovate a property myself to save money, he confessed with a laugh. Ended up flooding 3 floors when I broke a water main. My father had to bail me out, literally and figuratively. Avery found herself laughing more than she had in months. There was something disarming about his willingness to share his mistakes and vulnerabilities. As they shared tiramisu for dessert, Avery gathered her courage. Can I ask you something personal? Anything, he replied. Why are you still single? I mean, you're... She gestured vaguely at him. You. Nico looked down at his coffee cup. The easy answer is that I work too much. The real answer is more complicated. He paused. When you're in my position, it's hard to know who wants you and who wants what you represent. The last serious relationship I had ended when I overheard my girlfriend telling her friend that dating me was like having a walking ATM. Avery winced. That's awful. It was a valuable lesson, he said without bitterness. Since then I've been careful, maybe too careful. Is that why you wrote notes instead of just asking me out? Avery asked. You were testing me? No, he said quickly. I was testing myself. I wanted to know if I could connect with someone based on who they are, not what they could do for me or what I could give them. He met her eyes. When I saw how you treated people, I realized I'd forgotten what genuine kindness looked like. It had been so long since I'd seen someone care without an agenda. Avery felt her cheeks warm. I'm not special, Nico. I'm just being decent. That's exactly what makes you special, he insisted. You don't even see how rare that is. After dinner, Nico drove them to a small park overlooking the city. They walked side by side, the evening cool enough that Avery was glad when he offered her his jacket. So, he said after a comfortable silence, did this evening meet your expectations? Avery smiled. I tried not to have expectations, but yes, it was nice, different than I imagined. Different good or different bad? Good, she assured him. I expected to be uncomfortable, to feel out of place. But you made it easy. That's how it should be, he said. When it's right, it's not difficult. They reached a bench overlooking the city lights. As they sat down, Avery turned to face him. Can I ask you something else? He nodded. What happens? On Monday? When we go back to work and I'm still the receptionist and you're still the CEO? Nico considered her question. Professionally, nothing changes. You're good at your job and I respect that. Personally, he took her hand gently. That depends on you. If you want to see me again, I'd like that very much. If not, I understand, and there won't be any awkwardness at work. You have my word. Avery looked down at their joined hands. His was warm and strong, and it felt right in a way she hadn't expected. I'd like to see you again, she said softly. His smile made her heart skip. Good. As they walked back to the car, Avery felt lighter than she had in years. For one evening, she'd let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, fairy tales weren't completely impossible. The next few weeks passed in a blur. True to his word, Nico maintained a professional distance at work. To most observers, nothing had changed. He rarely came to the lobby during business hours, and when he did, his interactions with Avery were polite but brief. But outside of work, they saw each other almost every evening. Sometimes they went to small, out-of-the-way restaurants where Nico wouldn't be recognized. Other nights they ordered takeout and watched movies at Avery's apartment, which Nico seemed to prefer to his own luxurious penthouse. It's peaceful here, he explained when she asked why. No one expecting anything from me. Avery came to know the man behind the power suits and boardroom reputation. She learned that he preferred coffee to tea, could quote Shakespeare from memory, and kept a photo of his late mother on his nightstand. She discovered that for all his business confidence, He was surprisingly unsure of himself in personal relationships. Meanwhile, Nico uncovered Avery's layers: her love of rainy days and old bookstores, her habit of leaving sticky notes with kind messages on the bathroom mirrors of friends having a hard time, her secret dream of writing children's books someday. One Sunday morning, as they sat having breakfast in her tiny kitchen, Avery realized she was falling in love with him. The thought terrified her. "What's wrong?" Nico asked, noticing her expression. "Nothing," she said quickly. He reached across the table and took her hand. "Avery, talk to me." She hesitated, then admitted, "I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of how much this matters to me. Of how much you matter." His eyes softened. "That scares me too." "Really? You always seem so sure. About business, yes. About us?" He shook his head. "I keep waiting for you to realize you could do better." Avery laughed in disbelief. "Better than the brilliant, successful, kind man sitting across from me? I don't think such a person exists." "I meant someone normal," he said. "Someone whose life isn't complicated by board meetings and public scrutiny. I worry about how my world might affect you." It was the first time either of them had acknowledged the reality of their different worlds. So far, they'd been living in a bubble, but Avery knew it couldn't last forever. "Is that why you've been keeping us a secret?" she asked. "I haven't been keeping us a secret," he protested. "I've been protecting your privacy. Once people know we're together, everything changes. The press, the gossip, people at work already." "Suspect," Avery pointed out. "I've heard the whispers." "Suspecting is different from knowing," Nico said. "But if you want to go public, we can." Avery thought about it. "I don't need public declarations. I just need to know that you're not ashamed of being with me." Nico looked shocked. "Ashamed? Avery, being with you is the best thing that's happened to me in years. I'm private about us because what we have is precious to me, not because I'm hiding you." She wanted to believe him, but old insecurities died hard. "You've never introduced me to anyone in your life," she pointed out. "You're right," he admitted, "and that's my mistake." He thought for a moment. "My sister is having a dinner party. And next Saturday, will you come with me?" Avery hesitated. Meeting his family felt like a big step. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure," he said firmly. "It's time I stopped being so protective and started being proud. Because I am, Avery. I'm proud to be with you." The week leading up to the dinner party was nerve-wracking for Avery. What would Nico's sister think of her? Would she be accepted, or would she face the same dismissal she'd experienced before? Grace helped her pick out a dress, nothing too flashy but elegant enough for a dinner party in the elite circles Nico inhabited. "You'll be fine," Grace assured her. "Just be yourself. That's who he fell for after all." Saturday evening arrived, and Nico picked her up looking handsome in a casual blazer. As they drove to his sister's mansion in an exclusive neighborhood, he sensed her anxiety. "Rebecca will love you," he said, squeezing her hand. "She's been dying to meet the woman who's made her workaholic brother start leaving the office before midnight." But as they pulled up to the imposing house, Avery's doubts returned. This world, with its manicured gardens and valet parking, was so far from everything she knew. "Ready?" Nico asked as he helped her from the car. Avery nodded, not trusting herself to speak. As they walked to the door, he whispered, "Just remember, I'll be right beside you the whole time." The door opened before they could ring the bell, revealing an elegant woman with Nico's same storm-gray eyes and warm smile. "Finally!" she exclaimed, pulling Nico into a hug before turning her attention to Avery. "And you must be the famous Avery. I'm Rebecca. I've been pestering my brother for weeks to bring you over." Her genuine warmth put Avery at ease. "It's nice to meet you. Come in, both of you. Everyone's dying to meet the woman who's managed to do what none of us could, get Nico to have a personal life again." As they entered the house, Nico kept his arm around Avery's waist, a silent reminder of his support. He introduced her to Rebecca's husband, James, and a small group of their closest friends. To Avery's surprise, the evening was enjoyable. Rebecca was nothing like the judgmental socialite she'd feared, and the other guests treated her with warm curiosity rather than condescension. After dinner, while Nico was deep in conversation with James about a charity project, Rebecca sat down beside Avery on the terrace. "So," she said with a gentle smile, "you're the one who's been leaving my brother anonymous notes." Avery nearly choked on her. "Wine. He told you about that?" Rebecca laughed. "Don't be embarrassed. He told me because he couldn't believe someone had noticed him. The real him, not the CEO facade. I didn't know who he was when I replied to his notes," Avery admitted. "That's exactly why it matters so much to him," Rebecca said. "Look, Avery, my brother has everything money can buy, but he's been lonely for a long time. Since you came into his life," he smiles again. Really smiles, not the press conference version. "I care about him a lot," Avery said softly. "I can see that," Rebecca replied, "and I can also see that you're worried about fitting into his world." Avery looked down at her hands. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who's been paying attention." Rebecca touched her arm gently. "Can I give you some advice? Don't try to fit into his world. That's not what he wants or needs. Just keep being the person who saw him when no one else did." Later that night, as Nico drove her home, Avery felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The evening had gone better than she could have hoped. "Your sister is wonderful," she told him. "She likes you," Nico replied with a smile. "She told me not to mess this up." "And will you mess it up?" Avery asked, partly teasing, partly serious. Nico pulled the car over and turned to look at her. "Avery Lane, I have never been more determined not to mess something up in my entire life." He took her hand. "These past weeks have been the happiest I can remember, and it's because of you. Because you saw me as just a man, not a name or a position." Avery's heart raced as he leaned closer. "I'm falling in love with you," he whispered, "and it terrifies me in the best possible way." "I'm falling in love with you too," she admitted, the words both frightening and freeing. His kiss was gentle at first, then deeper, full of promise and possibility. When they finally broke apart, Avery knew with absolute certainty that whatever challenges might come from their different worlds, what they had found together was worth fighting for. As they drove the rest of the way to her apartment, Avery reflected on how much had changed since that first anonymous note appeared in her desk drawer. Sometimes it seemed fairy tales didn't require magic, just the courage to believe you deserved one. Monday morning arrived with a fresh sense of possibility. As Avery walked into the lobby of Grayson Enterprises, she felt the weight of curious stares. News of her appearance at Rebecca Grayson's dinner party had somehow spread through the office grapevine. "Is it true?" Grace whispered as soon as Avery reached her desk. "You met his family?" Avery nodded, arranging her things. "Just his sister and her husband. It was a small dinner party." "And? How was it?" "It was nice," Avery said, unable to keep the smile from her face. "They were really welcoming." Grace squeezed her arm. "I'm so happy for you. I told you this could be real." As the morning progressed, Avery noticed more eyes on her than usual. Whispers followed her to the break room and back. Some colleagues who had barely spoken to her before suddenly found reasons to stop by reception. "Don't let it bother you," Daniel, the office manager, advised during her lunch break. "People always gossip about what they don't understand." "What don't they understand?" Avery asked. Daniel gave her a kind smile. "Why the most eligible bachelor in the company would choose someone genuine instead of someone climbing the corporate ladder." Around 2 o'clock, Avery's desk phone rang. "Miss Lane?" It was Nico's assistant. "Mr. Grayson would like to see you in his office at your earliest convenience." Avery's heart skipped. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine," the assistant assured her. "He just asked me to call rather than coming down himself, to avoid attention." Avery understood. Their relationship might be out in the open now, but maintaining professionalism at work was important to both of them. When she entered Nico's office, she found him standing by the window, looking troubled. "What's wrong?" she asked immediately. He turned, his expression softening at the sight of her. "I'm sorry to call you up here during work hours, but there's something I need to show you." He handed her a tablet open to a gossip website. The headline made her stomach drop. Billion-dollar romance, Grayson Air dating employee, love or corporate ladder climbing. Below was a grainy photo of them leaving Rebecca's house, his arm around her waist. "Oh," Avery said quietly, handing the tablet back. "I guess we're news." "I'm so sorry," Nico said, running a hand through his hair. "Someone at the party must have tipped them off." "It's not your fault," Avery assured him, though she felt shaken. "The article is full of speculation about you," Nico continued, angry now, "questioning your motives, digging into your background. They even found your old social media accounts." "I don't have much on social media," Avery said, trying to stay calm. "That's not the point," Nico replied. "This is exactly what I was afraid of. My life comes with scrutiny that no one should have to endure." Avery took a deep breath. "So what do we do?" "My PR team wants to release a statement, make it clear that our relationship doesn't affect company operations. They want us to do a controlled interview to get ahead of the narrative." His tone made it clear what he thought of that idea. "And what do you want?" Avery asked. Nico looked at her with such tenderness that it made her heart ache. "I want to protect you from all of this. I want our relationship to be just ours, not fodder for gossip columns." Avery moved closer and took his hand. "I knew what I was getting into, Nico. Maybe not the specifics, but I knew being with you would come with complications." "This is more than complications," he said. "Once you're associated with me publicly, everything changes. The press will dig into your past, follow you, speculate about every aspect of your life." "Are you having second thoughts?" Avery asked, the fear she'd been holding at bay finally surfacing. "About us? No," he said emphatically. "Never about us. I'm just worried about what this will do to you, to your privacy, your peace of mind." "I'm tougher than I look," Avery said with a small smile. "Always have been." Nico pulled her into an embrace, public setting forgotten. "I know you are. It's one of the many things I love about you." For the rest of the week, Avery adjusted to her new reality. She ignored the stares and whispers at work. She deleted her barely used social media accounts on Nico's advice. She learned to spot photographers when they left restaurants. Through it all, Nico was attentive and protective, clearly worried about how she was handling the sudden attention. But to Avery's own surprise, she found herself adapting. The gossip bothered her less than she expected. "It's because none of it matters," she told Nico one evening as they sat in her apartment. "The people who know me know the truth. The rest is just noise." Nico looked at her with wonder. "How did you get so wise?" "Not wise," she corrected. "Just focused on what's important." As the weeks passed, their relationship deepened. They settled into a rhythm that worked for both of them, busy weeks with stolen moments and weekends that belonged just to them. Avery met more of Nico's family and close friends, all of whom seemed genuinely happy that the workaholic CEO had found someone who made him smile. In turn, Nico met Avery's handful of college friends and her parents, who visited from their small hometown. To her relief, he charmed them effortlessly, not as a wealthy businessman, but as a man who cared deeply for their daughter. 3 months after that first note appeared in Avery's drawer, Nico surprised her with a weekend getaway to a small coastal town. "No work, no press, no interruptions," he promised as they drove up the scenic coastline. "Just us." The bed and breakfast he'd chosen was charming and private, their room overlooking the ocean. After they settled in, they walked along the beach, talking about everything and nothing as the sun began to set. "Do you remember what you wrote in your first note to me?" Avery asked as they sat on a driftwood log watching the waves. Nico smiled. "Something about noticing your smile, I think." "You said my kindness didn't go unnoticed," she reminded him. "At the time, I thought it was just a line." "It wasn't," he said simply. "I'd been watching you for weeks by then, amazed that someone could maintain such genuine warmth in a world that rarely rewards it." Avery leaned against his shoulder. "And do you remember what I wrote back to you?" Nico laughed. "Okay, Romeo. If you're real, show up. Otherwise, please stop." "Not my most romantic moment," Avery admitted. "On the contrary," Nico said, turning to face her. "It was perfect. You challenged me to be real, to step out from behind anonymous notes and show you who I really was." He took her hands in his. That's what you've done for me every day since, Avery. You've made me real." There was something in his voice that made Avery's heart race. "What do you mean?" "Before you, I was just going through the motions. Running the company, making money, living up to everyone's expectations, but I wasn't really living." His eyes held hers. "You changed that. You made me want more than success. You made me want happiness." Avery felt tears prick her eyes. "You've changed my life too. You made me brave enough to hope again." Nico reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Avery's breath caught as he opened it, revealing a simple but stunning diamond ring. "Avery Lane," he said softly, "from the moment you challenged me to show up, I knew I would spend the rest of my life showing up for you, in all the ways that matter. Every day, you remind me of what's real and what's important." He took a deep breath. "I love you with everything I am. Will you marry me?" Tears spilled down Avery's cheeks as joy overwhelmed her. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, of course I will." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Avery thought about how far they'd come from those first anonymous notes. She had been so certain that fairy tales didn't happen to people like her, that men like Nikolai Grayson didn't fall for women like her. How wonderfully wrong she had been. Nico pulled her close, kissing her with such tenderness that she felt it to her soul. When they finally broke apart, both breathless and smiling, he rested his forehead against hers. "I have one more surprise," he said. "I don't think my heart can take any more surprises today," Avery laughed. "This one's been in the works for a while," Nico explained. "Remember when you told me about wanting to teach someday, to help kids discover books that might change their lives?" Avery nodded, surprised he'd remembered that early conversation. "The Grayson Foundation is starting a new program," he continued, "funding teacher certification for people who want to teach in underserved communities. If you're interested, there's a spot waiting for you. You could start this fall, work part-time while you complete the program." Avery stared at him in disbelief. "You did this for me?" "I did it because of you," he corrected. "Your passion for education inspired the whole program, but whether you want to be part of it is entirely your choice. No pressure." Avery threw her arms around him, overwhelmed by his thoughtfulness. "It's perfect, absolutely perfect." As twilight deepened around them, they walked back to the inn hand in hand, talking about their future together. Avery couldn't help but compare this moment to where she'd been just a few months ago. Guarded, skeptical, afraid to hope. "What are you thinking about?" Nico asked, noticing her reflective expression. "I'm thinking about that first day, when you came down to reception with your letter," she said. "I was so sure it couldn't be real, that someone like you couldn't possibly be interested in someone like me." "Someone like you," Nico echoed. "You mean someone kind, intelligent, and genuine? Someone who sees the real me, not just what I can offer? Someone brave enough to take a chance on love when it would have been easier to walk away?" Avery smiled up at him. "When you put it that way, we make perfect sense." "We do," he agreed, kissing her softly. "We absolutely do." 6 months later, Avery stood in a small side room of a countryside chapel, her wedding dress simple but elegant as she awaited the moment to walk down the aisle. Her father waited beside her, emotional at the sight of his daughter as a bride. "Ready?" "Sweetheart?" he asked. Avery nodded, her heart full. Through the door she could hear the gathered guests, a small intimate group of family and close friends, exactly as she and Nico had wanted. As the music began, her father offered his arm. "Let's not keep him waiting." The doors opened, and Avery saw Nico standing at the altar, his eyes finding hers immediately. The love in his gaze was so powerful it took her breath away. With each step down the aisle, Avery thought about the journey that had brought them here. From anonymous notes to public scrutiny, from fear to courage, from doubt to absolute certainty. When she reached him, Nico took her hands in his, whispering so only she could hear, "Thank you for asking me to show up." Avery smiled through happy tears. "Thank you for being real." As they exchanged vows, promising to love and cherish each other for all their days, Avery knew they were creating their own fairy tale, not one of princes and castles, but of two, people who had found in each other exactly what they needed, someone who truly saw them, who loved them not despite their vulnerabilities, but because of them. And when Nico kissed her as his wife for the first time, Avery felt the final walls around her heart dissolve completely. She had spent so long believing that love like this wasn't meant for her, that she wasn't enough for someone like him. How beautifully wrong she had been. How wonderfully right they were together. Later, as they shared their first dance as husband and wife, Nico held her close and whispered, "Happy, Mrs. Grayson." Avery smiled up at the man who had first noticed her when she thought she was invisible, who had pursued her with patient determination, who had shown her that real love wasn't about status or expectations, but about seeing and being seen. "Happier than I ever thought possible," she replied honestly. Around them, family and friends celebrated their union, but for that moment, it was just the two of them. Two people who had found in each other a love worth showing up for, a love worth believing in, a love that proved some fairy tales did come true after all. And in Avery's desk drawer back at their home, carefully preserved in a keepsake box, was the final letter Nico had delivered that day in the lobby. A reminder of how their story began, with one simple truth that had changed everything. "I fell for you from a distance because I didn't want to overwhelm you, but I'll stand here now, if you'll let me." She had let him stand there, and in doing so had found the courage to stand beside him, not as the receptionist and the CEO, but as Avery and Nico, two people who had discovered that the most powerful magic of all was the courage to be seen, to be vulnerable, and to love without fear, and that was a story more beautiful than any fairy tale she could have imagined. The end.